here for the Instagram while I get a chance to take my first hit of cafe con leche.
Just don't slurp it.
Too late.
Yeah.
All right. Yay. It is Sunday. And if the world has gone crazy, we're all witnessing it, and we know we're not crazy. So that's good. But I think if we have any kind of takeaway from the last couple of weeks is we need a new generation of politicians to work with. We'll discuss that and many things in today's rotation. Hit the music.
1 second. Oh gosh. Oh.
See, you lost my time.
I wasn't done with the.
In my soul, you're a corner in my heart.
Okay, no problem. I mean, I'm certain that your board probably had too many dabs this morning.
What? No, it's just I have to. There's a certain protocol. I should write it all out for you. That's the problem. Like Kano has this thing where he wants you to wait a few seconds before you actually start talking because the YouTube lags. And then there's also this thing where I have to put in what's called a stream key, and I gotta set up the Instagram live after we actually go live on every other platform. So I'm just oh gosh, and then you're hit that music, and you're trying to be all cool, and I'm oh god, oh jeez, oh god. So now I look like a nerd, and you don't look as cool as you want to look. So I'm just gonna write it all out for you, and we'll get it. We'll get it one day. How long we've been doing this show? We'll get it.
Don't worry.
Later.
We are semi-professionals. Don't try this at home. That's the bottom line. And of course, you're the engineer, which is great because I'm not. I excel in so much else, but not that. So you're as good as it gets, and that's perfect for me. Oh. Anyways, it's Sunday, and we're delighted to be here. My name is Gary Stein. I'm the political director here for Suncoast Normal and our master of public health.
It's the same catch-in from last week.
Okay, but you're supposed to give me applause.
You didn't hear it?
No, I was kind of talking over it, but it sounded more like water coming off the waves. Anyways,
yeah, I don't know what the hell.
And to my left, your right, probably. No, it is probably to your left and my right. It is our deputy director, master of business administration and engineer, Carlos Angel Jose Armida.
Oh. What's the one that I'm... Yeah, all right, yeah.
I like that one.
He got that degree, I think, from University of Phoenix, right, to do the engineering?
No, I'm all self-taught.
It shows. and today we're very honored to have a guest who is a candidate for the Congress we so desperately need to replace right now. And I want to introduce to you all Sabrina Bousbar. Sabrina, how you doing today?
There you go, Carlos. I wanted the cool one too. I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having us here today.
And where are you located right now?
I am in Pinellas County, Florida, so by Clearwater Beach.
The biggest and best beach in the whole world.
100%. 100%. We have the best beaches over here in Pinellas County.
My parents moved to Sand Key. They retired from their life in South Florida, tried to move to the beach and be as close as they are to their kids. My sister lives over in the Brandon area, and they live the life. It's so nice. It's just beautiful beaches, white sand. They wake up every
clear
morning.
Water.
Yeah, they called it that for a reason, didn't they?
They knew what they were doing.
And you're in just the right spot because you're running for Congress in District 13, who is currently being represented by Anna Lunatic and Anna Luna.
You said it, not me.
Who I don't agree with on a lot of things, as you can tell. I'm an independent. I basically go on people's views more than just their political party because I think it's so important that we have diversion that comes from being bipartisan, which is great. Mm-hmm. But right now, I don't see anything other than far right talking points coming from your current representative. Now, my current representative is Gus Bilirakis. We don't agree on a lot of things except for a lot of veterans affairs. And we do communicate, though. He does listen to me, and I do eventually get things done by putting some bugs in his ears, and he takes it with him to DC. And hopefully you'll be the same one. Now, are you one of those Gen Zers?
Define that. What does that even mean?
What's like the cutoff age?
I have no idea.
I am a cusp. So I'm 27. I was 1997. So they consider me a zillennial because I have some like millennial traits, but also Gen Z traits all put together.
Zillennial. That's one of those weird words, kind of like Latinx.
Yes, no, it is. Well, that's what I've just been told because, of course I grew up with, some of the music that a lot of millennials tend to really love. But then I also grew up with technology because the iPhone was when I was in 8th grade, I believe. So, I sort of did grow up, but my siblings will roast me and say that they don't think I'm Gen Z. They don't want to associate themselves with me because they're like, you're not Gen Z, we're Gen Z. And I'm like, but I am Gen Z technically. So,
Yeah.
it's an interesting debate in the household.
We've had Max Frost on a couple times. We had him on before the election and then, of course, after the election.
Mhm.
And hopefully we gave him a nice boost because he's been doing absolutely fantastic out there. He is
Yes.
Gen Z, as he says. And from what I understand, a fine drummer, too.
Yes. He,
like he was,
oh,
Go
sorry, I
ahead.
was just gonna say him and I are the same age, so I identify as Gen Z. That I personally identify as Gen Z, but it's always a debate within the household.
Well,
So
from what I understand, he's got to be out there today pushing the fact that we don't agree on political violence in any way, shape, or form, which is exactly the opposite of the way things are being taken right now on the other side, where I saw a bunch of comments coming from the right saying we need to get back to those Democrats for what they did.
oh my
And
goodness.
Marjorie Taylor Greene is leading that lunatic fringe.
Was
And
it? You're talking about the Trump shooting?
yeah, the
Yeah.
Trump shooting.
I thought that guy was. I thought the shooter was a registered Republican.
He is. I don't think
Yes.
I think she's ignoring that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, how else can she make stupid statements like that unless she's totally uninformed? And I think she tries to stay that way.
It's such an unfortunate thing. We should pay attention to I'm not saying Trump's a good guy by any means, okay? But I'm not going to say that he deserves a bullet. But the what I think is really the worst part of all this is it gives the right ammunition, no pun intended, against the left to call us violent, to claim that Antifa is a real thing. We're gonna hear a lot of fucking bullshit. I know it.
And
just so you know, Carlos has just demonstrated the level of obscenity we're allowed to use on this show. So if you wish, feel free.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree though. Like, I really hate that we are so violent, and political violence has no place in this country, in this world. I mean, I disagree with former President Trump, on all of his policy stances and, Project 2025 and all the things that he wants to push forward as the next agenda for this country. But I still don't believe he should ever be assassinated or, hurt or killed or anything like that. I mean, where's our humanity? I think that's what really gets to me about all of this, is that we are at a time where we are in a gun violence epidemic, and what we saw last night, I mean, it's another shooting that has happened on a former president, and we're living that now. And it's sort of, for me, wake up, America. There are guns that have gotten into this country that are really hurting us on the daily. And, the number one death amongst children are guns. And that's why, Congressman Frost and all the work that he's done, I would 100% want to partner with him on it, because we are the generation that grew up with the lockdown drills. We are the generation who has that PTSD, that trauma that comes from guns in this country. And, to see a former president in my lifetime now have an attempt of assassination is just horrific, and it scares me, actually. So for me, I was the opposite of what Marjorie Taylor Greene and them are wanting to say. I actually felt for the president and his family and the trauma that must bring to them. And I just hope that we all take a step back from this and realize that we need to address the issue here. which are guns.
And I grew up having witnessed, though I was a young child, the Kennedy assassination. And then after that, all the other ones that happened in 68, and of course in 72, Wallace, and then 81, Reagan. And it didn't make any difference what party it was. It was always a tragedy
Right.
as far as the media and everybody else was concerned. But to go ahead and turn it into a political thing each time when it's a lone wolf who's just gone crazy is insane. And hopefully we can keep it real. Hopefully we can keep it 100%.
I
And
agree.
we'll see how things are going. But I want to get back to you for a moment, Sabrina. What brought you to the point where you decided to go ahead and run for office? What was your background on this?
Yeah, so a little bit about who I am and what led me here. So I was born and raised in Pinellas County, Florida. My parents came to this country 34 years ago. So my mom's from Colombia and my dad's from Morocco. They met through the SPCUSF International Program. And ever since they've been here, and we have, as I mentioned, my little siblings, I have a little sister and a brother. And from a young age, they really taught me the importance of this country, the beauty of democracy, and how important it is to stand up for what you believe in and show it for your communities. And so for me, that really started my involvement in public service. I went to Florida State University, where I got my degree in political science and international affairs. And after Donald Trump was elected, I got way more involved because to me, I saw the divisiveness, I saw the hate that he and his, party was sort of creating. And so I was one of the first organizers hired on the Biden campaign. I organized in Florida. I was a regional organizing director here. I worked for the inauguration, and then I had the honor to serve this country doing COVID response at the Department of Health and Human Services. And so I started my public service career for the federal government in the beginning of his administration. And I helped with not just COVID, but natural disasters, even mass shootings, sadly, I was there for, and also just helping the president and his, his goals and what he wanted to get done for the future within the Department of Health and Human Services and at the White House. And what really upset me, and I think you sort of mentioned this a little bit earlier about Anna Paulina Luna, was not just her extremism, but also the inefficiencies that are coming out of Congress. This is the most ineffective Congress we have ever seen in our lifetime. And for me, it was very frustrating to see that my home was being represented by someone who doesn't even want to sit at the table, who doesn't even want to answer to their constituents, who has a low voting record and has an extreme voting record and is behind President Trump and this, Project 2025 and this extremism that we're seeing right now. And so for me, what lit a fire was to really ensure that we have leaders who are going to stand up for our futures, because we deserve to live in healthy and safer communities. I mean, this is America, right? We are the leader of the free world. We are the richest country in the world. So why are we not having elected officials who are going to fight for all of the issues we are suffering from, whether that's housing, jobs, education, or healthcare? And so for me, that's what really led me to do this, because I'm tired of her extremism and that she keeps putting her ideologies above the people she's supposed to serve, when I always want to serve my community and make sure that they have a better future.
Does she ever have town halls or community reach out situations on the phone or in person?
Not that I have heard of. What I've heard a lot from, so I've been, knocking doors, talking to voters here in the district, and I've actually come across a lot of Republicans who have reached out to my campaign, and I immediately respond, and we find time to sit down or have meet and greets, and they tell me one of the hardest things that they've gone through with Representative Luna is that they reach out to her office, they try and connect to her, they ask questions, and they never get a response. And if they do get a response, it doesn't address the question that they had. It sort of just goes around it. And so there's a lot of frustration that she's not, having the constituency services that you should have as an elected leader. And, I've seen rallies, but I've never really seen town halls. I've never seen meet and greets. I've never seen any kind of format to hold her accountable. And that's just unfortunate, because Republican, Democrat, Independent, NPA, no matter what, like, you represent all of us once you're elected into office. So it's very important that even if we might disagree on, policies, that you do listen to our concerns as constituents and what we want to see you do for us when you're in Congress.
I mean, one thing about our democracy, large D, is the fact that it is supposed to be a representative form of government, which means we people put people in government to represent us. And so therefore they should be doing what they feel is the best for us and what we have told them about. If they're
Right.
not listening, if they're going on their own agenda, they are not actually following the heart and soul of what the Constitution actually wanted in the very first place.
Exactly. And that is one of my biggest frustrations. You know, when I served and did COVID response, I wasn't thinking about just democratic values. I was thinking about the American people. I was thinking about how do we make sure that seniors and immunocompromised and children are able to go back to school, or make sure that people don't die from this anymore. And right now, like, you know, we see people like Anna Paulina Luna, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Lauren Boebert, who are like, to hell with that, right? Like, they're like, hell no, we don't care anymore what the people are seeing and feeling. And that's so frustrating because it's like, you're supposed to represent all of us, and like, you're supposed to fight for issues we all agree on. You know, a lot of even Republicans will tell you that they're fiscally conservative, but like consider themselves socially liberal. And like, that's why they sort of disagree with this extremism that's happening, because, you know, the ban on the books that's happened, well, more in the state, right? Ban on books, don't say gay bill, like all of those things are definitely impacting their children, their families as well. And so we're seeing this scenario where we have self-interest leading the policies, but it's actually not what the people want. And that's scary, right? Like, that is a threat to our democracy when that's happening.
I think there's a huge disconnect between what a and excuse me for lumping all politicians together, but what a politician says and how they actually use their influence. I will never forget that we've had a couple of Florida state senators that came on this show that you're on and were like, yeah, we're for the hemp industry, we're going to make sure that the hemp industry is okay. And then all of a sudden everybody voted down on the bill. It is very strange to see the difference between a politician's platform and the difference between how they actually vote. And as you were mentioning, the difference between like socially liberal conservatives and hardcore conservatives, I think a lot of Republicans, if they stop paying attention to whether or not somebody's red or blue, or even the ones that go the extra distance to really look at people's platforms, I think a lot of them would change the way that they vote if they just look to see how these politicians use their influence.
Oh,
I don't know, what do you think?
100%.
Now we had what's her name, Nancy Mays, on our show during the last election cycle, and I mean, there's a lot of things that she says and does that are just absolutely out bipartisan, in a bipartisan fashion, to fashion a fiscally conservative bill to legalize cannabis, and that was very bold of her, considering the way she normally acts. But she made a lot of sense in the bill that she did, because she worked with the other side to put together. Naturally, it didn't go anywhere. Like so much legislation happens in DC, where you started a brand new legislature. Everybody's bright and shiny, and they put out a whole bunch of bills, and they all sit waiting for committees until 2 years have passed. And that seems to be the way it's always going. But I think that's starting to change right now.
I
But we
think it
can't
is
do it without having bipartisan support.
Right. And I think that goes to like accountability, right? Like, as someone who's running, and what I say in the campaign trail is exactly what I would want to reflect in the work that I'm doing. And it should, right? Like, everyone should hold me accountable to the issues that I take stances on. And if I end up backtracking, I need to tell you why. Let me at least tell you why I decided to actually vote no when I used to be yes. And maybe there's a reason behind that why. And that's why I like that you asked about the town hall, because that's what I would want to do, right? Is come back to my district, host a town hall, sort of go through why I voted for what I voted that might have been controversial within the district, or, et cetera, to make sure that people know, like, oh, that's why Sabrina didn't want to vote this way, because maybe there's a better option here, or some other way we can make it better. Maybe I had some amendments that I wanted to put forward with it because it actually does more harm than good, right? Like, I think that's the issue, is that we have people who say what they want to say to win, they win, and then they go in there and then they end up voting another way, and they don't at least explain why. And then that hurts people, because they're like, I thought you were going to fight for this and now you didn't. So can you at least just tell me what happened there? Right. Like, that's just my issue with politics overall, is that why aren't we just honest with one another? Why aren't we just held accountable with each other? Like, that should be what your politicians do. And, it's so sad when there's statistics out there that show, a lot of people don't trust politicians. Like, we're like elected leaders are like the very bottom when it comes to like, who are your trusted people and leaders in this country. And that's disheartening, because those are the people you elect to office that should be one of the most trusted people in your communities. But because of this politics and performances that we're going through, we're now seeing it like impact how people feel about our government. And that's so disheartening, because it shouldn't be that way.
Well, I mean, one of the situations I think that it responds to that is that, first off, we have this 24-hour news cycle that is so inclusive. I blame C-SPAN because not that anybody actually watches C-SPAN, but it's a 24-hour station basically, and it shows everything that happens in D.C. At one point or another. Some votes are strictly technical; they're strictly procedural. And if you're voting for something, it's probably because you're trying to get towards and getting an amendment put in later on, and that kind of situation where it's strategic as opposed to necessarily policy based. And yet, if everybody thinks that every vote you have is the final vote, then they don't get what you're actually voting for. And so we need to educate the public a little bit more on that if we're going to give them that kind of information to go with. But we also need to educate our legislators more on the things that they are voting for. And that's what one of the things that Normal really strives for, is because we have found out that so many politicians are ignorant about the policies they stress, in part because it's lobbyists that are coming to them and giving them the information that they have. And that's sometimes skewed based on who the principal is that they're working for.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that is one of the things I see as a problem with national politics. By the way, I love the fact that you were working on COVID, and I was with the Centers for Disease Control for, gosh, I was how many years, and people don't understand what public health is all about. They think it's a matter of taking away rights, when it's just us trying to point them in the right direction towards better health.
Yes, that's all it was. So I worked for the Administration of Strategic Preparedness and Response. So we worked closely with CDC and NIH on a lot of projects with COVID response. And I tell a lot of people, like, when I went into work every day, it was about helping communities recover. It was about ending this pandemic, because we saw, that was the saddest part about the job, was seeing the amount of deaths that were happening on the daily, the reports that CDC would give to us every morning, and, going into work and figuring out, okay, how are we going to respond to this? How do we make sure vaccines are provided? How do we make sure people know, the actual facts behind the vaccines, because we were fighting the mis and disinformation battles. How do we make sure people know how to recover from COVID in case they get it, or ensure that they know the CDC guidelines that are happening? And we had to fight this continuous battle of misinformation that was being fed into our communities, and people thinking that the federal government didn't want to help them recover from this. But we did, genuinely. We just wanted to make sure that this country could get back on track, that people could go back to school, that people could go back to work, that they can go back to living the lives they were living. And it was just such a crucial, I look back at it, and it was insane, right? It was an insane time, but it is a great example of how we need to do better in this country. Our public health infrastructure is not at its best. I actually am worried about the future of public health, when it comes to the pandemics that we might encounter now that we're seeing, more, as the heat index increases, more diseases start to thrive. And I'm really worried about what we can see next. And I don't think people are really talking about that enough. And that's something that we have to have legislators who are going to be thinking about, sort of the future, because we're a very reactive system. We wait until it happens and then we give the money to react to it. But if you actually invest in some proactive efforts, which a lot of people call the mitigation phase, we would be able to save so much more money in the future, because we'd be better prepared as a country for that next pandemic, or even disasters when you think about it.
Well, we know that Florida is not ready because we have a Surgeon General who is very much against public health. And
Yep.
Dr. Latipo, if you want to come on and talk to us, we're more than willing to come on you. I'd be more than happy. We could sit there and we could debunk together.
I would love to tune into that. Let me tell you.
When I saw him coming, I knew there was going to be a problem in Florida. It was one of the reasons we had so many deaths, so much morbidity in the state, because they were just ignoring everything that was going in the right direction. And I think that the cannabis laws are in the same in the same lot. We have dealt with mis and disinformation about cannabis since the turn of the century, and then that's the
Right.
20th, not the 21st. Since I've been kind of like there both ways. Uh, but we are dealing with, again, misinformation, and that's why it's so important to educate our legislators and know where they stand and what they need to know to move this forward. Because, like I said, I work for the Centers for Disease Control. I was there at a very science based background, and yet I turned myself around because I saw that the cannabis that I was using to get high back in college was actually a medicine that treats so much. I mean, one of the reasons that I got into this was this lady named Kathy Jordan, who I mentioned to you when I did the speech there, and she just passed away this last week on July 4th, as a matter of fact, at the age of 74, after having ALS since the age of 36. And that is a miracle in and of itself, because 80% of all ALS patients die in the first 5 years. Of those 20% left, 10% of those don't live any more than 10 years, and the rest spread out till the fact until we get to the point where she was. There's only a few who've ever gotten to that. And the reason she got there, it was because of cannabis. And I have a little graphic here that I brought with us. Carlos, will I put that up?
Yeah.
I probably should have given you a little heads up. There we go. This is a prescription that her doctor in Miami wrote to her. This patient is permitted to smoke a joint or marijuana for a clinical trial of the effects of Lou Gehrig's disease. That is the way he decided to write that prescription, so that she would have medical necessity and be able to use the product on her own. Of course, that was like, I'd say maybe 10 years before she actually got medical necessity. And for that to happen, boy, she actually had to have her house raided the day of she was in Tallahassee representing the Kathy Jordan bill, which was one of the first big legalization bills that failed. And she went back home and went to find out that the house had been raided, in part because of the fact that they had just bought the house next door, which they were going to rent out, and they had electrical wires stretched over to the other house to give them electricity so they can go ahead and clean the house out. And HUD came by. They saw the wires going from one house to the other. And so they followed the wires, and they looked in the garage, and they saw Kathy's grow in her garage, all the air conditioning tubes and things of that sort. So they called out the cops to come over there and raid the place. And so serendipity, whatever you want to call it, there was a raid, and they took their 17 plants. They said that they were worth about $20,000 a piece, and they charged them. And the bottom line is, after it was all said and done, the charges got dropped, and Kathy was allowed to smoke, but the medical necessity was actually given to her husband, Bob, to grow and dispense to her. She wasn't protected; he was protected, which was an interesting way of doing things, but it worked, and she survived many years here in Florida with cannabis, and we wish her well on her next journey to be. Now that she's freed of what was obviously a very frail body, that first 3 years of the disease took its toll, but she fought hard to get this where it has to be, and we're still not there. We still have the federal illegal status as well as the state illegal status. Now you're going to be working on the federal basis.
Right.
Have you had a chance to get any information in regards to the rescheduling of cannabis from Schedule 1 to Schedule 3?
Before we move on, I'm just wondering what it would be like to take this to a pharmacy. Be like, yo, you got any joints
Can I
back
get a
there,
joint?
dude?
Y'all got joints back there?
No, and not to harp on Kathy, but Florida Cannabis Action Network is throwing a memorial for her in Sarasota, and I'm gonna be headed out there after the show. And she was a lovely lady, but I'm sorry to interrupt, guys. I apologize.
Oh, that's okay. That is cool, but
maybe re-say the question, Gary.
Well, it's funny that you bring that up, because if they actually finish getting cannabis rescheduled from Schedule 1, which says no medical benefit whatsoever and a high propensity for abuse, to 3, which is it has medical propensity, but it's still subject to abuse. So it's up there with ketamine and a bunch of other things. But it will do some good, and you may actually have to take a prescription to a pharmacist to get it filled. Now, I'm not going to say the guy behind the counter is going to be all that knowledgeable about cannabis, and it may only come out in pill form as the pharmaceutical companies grab this industry by the you know what, and
Honest.
by the cajones.
No, I don't know what happened there.
I don't know, but you're learning Spanish, and that's good for a Cuban, I think, really.
Yeah, soy tu papa.
I wrote that on Father's Day, by the way.
I love it.
Now, you're half Colombian.
Yes,
I'm curious as to what your mom told you about how the cartels and that kind of thing ran when she was still there.
Yeah, so as you all know, there's like the Netflix show. I think it's called Narcos, right? Yeah, the Narcos show. I remember loving the first season. I was like, wow, and then I realized I was like, wait, that's like when my mom was in Colombia, and so I told my mom about it, and my mom was like, there's this one episode where I think they show that the school buses get bombed, like children going to school. And my mom was like, that was very real. She was like, that was something I would remember growing up in. And she also, she had a story. So the reason why my mom came to this country is that she was wanting to be a lawyer. She wanted to do good for Colombia because of the narcos. And, they had corrupted your legal system, your electeds, all of that. But she wanted to do better. And she ran into an attorney on the bus going back from school to home. And he said to her, why would you want to be a lawyer in this country? The narcos will either try and buy you out or kill you, or you'll have to do a job where you separate families or take them out of their homes. And it's not a fun job, let me tell you. And my mom has always told me those kinds of stories that really just were so sad and frightening to hear that that's what she was living in. And she had family here. So we had an aunt and uncle and all of that. She had extended family here. So it led her to come to this country to get a better education because she knew that what she had in Colombia was not going to be a future for a family, a future for having a successful law degree. Now she came here and she ended up doing med school. Like she became a microbiologist and went the other way. But we talk about it all the time, and she can't watch Narcos. It literally triggers post-traumatic syndrome. Like she cannot watch it because it reminds her of those times. And that's what is really frightening when you hear stories from other countries and then you come back. And then, I was born and raised here, and seeing the, politicians attack immigrants and knowing that a lot of them are coming from these kinds of scenarios, right? We don't have that in this country. We don't have, we do have corruption, but we don't have like that kind of narco system that's down there. And it's frightening, but it's gotten better, of course. But yeah, my mom and she's definitely talked about it a lot. And I always felt bad, especially as someone who was like, Narcos is so cool. And I'm like, wait, that's my mom's lived experience.
No,
So
I'm under the impression that, and this, please tell me if I'm completely misinformed. You're definitely, being Colombian, more informed than I am. But I'm definitely under the impression that, drugs being illegal in the U.S. gave that cartel just an immense amount of power. And you even see it in the show. Marijuana is actually a big part of the Narcos show. It's not all about cocaine. But, Escobar got his start fucking selling marijuana, and the Mexican cartel, there's this whole thing about how Sensimilla was discovered and on that show, which is amazing. We can talk all day about Sensimilla as far as I'm concerned. But the violence that came from prohibition really tore that country apart. I was wondering if you had anything to say about that.
No, yeah, it did. And I think everything you said is a great point. They abused and they used our system. They abused and used the system of Colombia. And I didn't think about the marijuana side. I just remember the cocaine side. Of course, that was
Yeah,
like, I feel like what they harped on the most. But you're right. And then they brought it into this country, and then they took advantage of it, right? Like, and they built this system here too. And they built it across South America. It's not just,
yeah.
in America, right? Like if you think of Mexico, Venezuela, like it's sort of trickled down, and that
That whole
control was
area,
insane.
one thing that really helped the cartel is they figured out marijuana grows great in that area.
Right.
Yeah. So I
It,
don't know. I have really conservative Cuban parents, and we were talking about your mom earlier. I'm wondering, like, does your mom feel the same way about prohibition? Does she feel that drugs should be prohibited in certain ways, or
So I think it depends on the drug. Like for
yeah,
her with medical marijuana, she totally is okay with it. If
yeah,
she's on the public health side. So my mom works for Baycare,
cool,
and me and my family are very public health oriented, and we feel like if there is something that could help your health, it should be legal, right? Like it should be that easy. If someone has the ability who needs medical marijuana, like they should have that. When it comes to the legalization of marijuana, I think she's come around a little more, to the point, because she has me and she has younger kids, and we're all sort of just like, yo, like it should just be legalized. Like it would bring so much money into the states, like it would invest in the economy, it would create more jobs. Like there's just so many great things that it could do for us. And so she sort of have warmed up to the idea of like legalizing marijuana, but I think she wants to start with medical marijuana. As for cocaine, she's like totally against it. And I will say we were raised to like, we like did not do drugs. Like we were very told, do not do drugs. It leads to other things, like that kind
yeah,
of mentality. So she definitely instilled that in us a little bit. I personally knew I wanted to work for the federal government. So I had always never like really been into the drug area, but I always have been for public health. And for me, I believe that we should have medical marijuana and all of that stuff. So my mom's like, she's definitely come around the idea,
hmm,
but in the beginning, she was definitely like, no, against it. Look at what it did to my country.
Now, your
same.
father was from Morocco. My father-in-law was in the North African theater in World War II, and he spent time in Morocco. Like you
Uh
could tell because there was pictures of him with absolutely an amazing tan. But
huh.
but he said that the opium dens were very much out there at the time, and it was a very lax system that allowed it. I'm not certain if that Morocco is like that today, but I can tell you that at that point in time, it was just normalized practically.
Yeah. I'm
Yeah.
just realizing that your background is very marijuana friendly. I'm
Yeah.
just saying. I'm just saying. I've had Moroccan hash and it is delicious. I've had Sinsemilla and it's delicious. I don't know, that might be something to look into. Maybe you're like a closeted pothead and you just don't know
It's
yet.
in my blood. That's what you're saying, Carlos. Well, I think the crazy part is that because it's illegal, you and the federal government like cannot have smoked or smoke marijuana, right? Because it's a legal federal drug, right? Like even if
Yeah,
it's legal in certain states. It was so fascinating when I was going through the government process of this whole situation, and the amount of young people that actually suffer from that rule when it comes to trying to get a job in the political world, because of it. And I just think, for me, it's like, maybe it is in my blood. And I'm like, we should just have it legalized, y'all. Like it would boost the economy. It would help people. Maybe it will make us a little more happier.
you,
I
I
think it would be good.
I am just saying you should think about it just to be the first, self-proclaimed pothead politician. I don't know if you've actually even smoked marijuana before, but
No.
but to be I mean, we've got a guy that yeah, he just got shot in the ear, but we got a guy convicted of how many felonies about running for president.
34.
Yeah, like I think it's very tame if you're just like, you know what, man, I just like to get high and I just want to hold public office.
Right.
I'll be
Right.
honest with you. I know of several congressmen who imbibe, uh, and I don't put it past them at 1 second that there's any problem. Maybe it actually makes them better congressmen
I,
because
I've smelled weed at the Florida Capitol before. I have. There
Wow.
is some some Florida rep or some Florida senator that's like shoving a wet towel under the door and lighting some incense there.
Right.
I don't know who, but I've smelled it. This knows.
No, I think it goes a block over to where the food trucks are and vibes over
Yeah.
there.
And the funny part is, like, those people that smoke it still don't want it legalized. Like, it's just so interesting to me. It's like, doesn't make sense.
It's very weird.
Well, we have like Foley in Florida, where what people do doesn't necessarily mean what the things they advocate for, and so we deal with that. But we know that there is a lot of problems with the way that the system is being run here in Florida, and we are very, very politically active in creating bills that will improve the system, because we can't wait for the federal government to come around and do that, because I mean there is the legalization, it would fold over, but we still have the state laws to deal with that will still make it so you can't get a job if you had a possession charge. In many cases, if you're in a institution like an ALF and you need it for your Parkinson's, they will take it away because they're afraid of losing their Medicare coverage, that kind of situation. And you would be knocked off the transplant list if you needed a transplant. And if you're using it cannabis because you had PTSD and or some other purpose, they can actually come over and petition to take your kids away because you're using the cannabis. And we've written laws that will change all that, because we feel those are egregious mistakes in the system, that people who are using it are often responsible enough not to give it to their kids. I mean, I can't guarantee that with everybody, but I know that most people who use it medically treat it like medicine and put it away so their kids can't access it. That's basically the way it's supposed to happen in the first place. And Carlos is very, very good at making certain that nobody walks into his shop and buys anything that's under the age of 21. We're always protecting the kids, because they're just not ready for it in a lot of aspects. I'll grant you, I may have not been ready for it at 18, but I turned out fine, except for all these birds that keep on flying in front of me all the time.
Well, with the laws that you all are like writing and helping in the state level, like because it's a Republican supermajority right now in the state of Florida, like what is the reception to it, and how are they going to, like, are they more willing to accommodate to those kinds of policies, or is it sort of a tough battle and we need Democrats to win and take back the state legislator and Senate? Like, would love to hear, sort of how that feels on the grounds.
Yeah, Carlos has been up there. He was fighting for the hemp industry, which had gotten a loophole in the farm bill that allowed them to go ahead and sell products that had a certain amount of THC in it, so that people could utilize it medicinally without being millionaires. Because right now we have a system in our state where it's an oligopoly, where if anybody wants to get into the business, they have to be able to go from seed to sale, which means basically the same thing like if Nabisco had to grow their own wheat and have kiosks in every single supermarket to be able to sell it. That's just the way the cannabis industry has to run right now. And that means you have to have an incredible amount of money, incredible amount of personnel, and things of that sort. So mom and pops are essentially wiped out. So we have 10,000 hemp stores in the state of Florida, approximately, maybe more, with hundreds of thousands of employees. And they've been trying to actually make that illegal and give the entire industry over to the MMTCs and just wipe out that whole industry. That's a lot of jobs. That's a lot of people, and a lot of people who put their life savings into their businesses.
Well, I just find it so fascinating, because it's like, this would help our economy. It does help our economy, and the Republicans run on, economy, right? Like, how do we ensure that our economy is in a good place? How do we make more jobs? How do we make sure we have more money? And if we actually legalized it, you would be able to bring more money into the state, which would allow us to pay, our teachers, for example, or our firefighters or police, or like help sort of our communities even more. But then they don't want to consider it, and it's sort of just very hypocritical. I just don't understand.
To bring what you both are talking about together, DeSantis actually has. So when we were up there fighting for the hemp bills, right, a lot of what we were saying, I remember a lot of public testimony where people were like, I brought my business to Florida because DeSantis said free state of Florida. We're about small business. I remember a lot of people, a lot on a topic on the industry. There's 10,000 small businesses in Florida that would be shut down if the hemp bill passes. We're ruining all these jobs and everything. And then DeSantis seems to be using that to his advantage now, because DeSantis stepped in and vetoed the hemp bill. And he's trying to use people like me who, I'm not falling for this bullshit, but he's trying to use people like me to now fund this anti-marijuana campaign. And I'm in some group chats where there are people depositing money directly into the account of the Republican Party of Florida for the purpose of funding their no on 3 efforts. So it's very strange right now. It's almost like there's a lot of Republicans in the state of Florida with hemp businesses that are now prohibitionists, and a lot of their concerns is that this amendment was written by True Leave. They don't seem to understand single subject rule because there's no home grow in the amendment. It doesn't look like it would open up the business. And I think there's a lot of I guess PTSD would be not be the right word, but I mean, it's the only word coming to mind right now, where you're expecting the Florida legislator to make common sense steps. And we're coming from this medical marijuana system that was just implemented so poorly. And we're just thinking, there has to be homegrown in the amendment. We have to force these people to make sure that it's regulated right. So there's a lot of dissatisfaction to answer your question from before. There's a lot of dissatisfaction with the Florida legislator, putting all these really stringent rules on medical marijuana, making it hard for people to get into the business, making it so that you can't grow at home, making it so that you need to go see the doctor every 7 months and spend all of this exorbitant amount of money on your healthcare there. So I mean, it's a lot. Like this is a confusing time for marijuana advocacy in Florida. Right. It really is.
Yeah, let me make this clear. And if anybody disagrees with me, feel free to turn off this thing before you listen to it, so you won't know that I'm going to be dissing you right now. But here's the situation.
Let me give you the floor there, Gare Bear.
All right. The veto DeSantis's veto was strategic. It was not policy. He was not in favor of hemp businesses across the state. He basically wanted something to help fight against Amendment 3, which is coming up on the ballot right now, that would make cannabis legal in the state, but with a couple of codicils, the way it was written by True Leave, that basically all of the business will go towards MMTCs and other licenses as the state allows. Well, so far the state hasn't allowed anything. So I'm not assuming at any point in time that they're going to suddenly change directions and start giving out licenses willy-nilly when we haven't had a new license that's actually been issued since 2015. And I'm expecting that to happen now. So if you want to, put your money where you want to put your money, of course. No one can tell you otherwise. But to put hundreds of thousands of dollars into the Republican campaigns just because you think that they are on your side, realize that next session, that bill will be back. And that bill will probably go through it with flying colors again. Last time they got it so that the Senate actually voted for it 39-1.
Just read the veto. Seriously, just read the veto. It's like 2 pages of yeah, we got to do something, but we're not going to do it now. That's basically it. It really Sabrina, I don't know. I know you don't know much about me, but I'm a very sensitive guy. My feelings get hurt very easily. And, when I'm made by the governor of the state to look like a drug dealer or like I'm harming children, when, I don't even let kids in here.
Yeah.
It's pretty disheartening. And I'm sure the rest of the hemp businesses out there are disheartening. They're feeling some type of way about what's happening in the legislature. And they're looking for a little bit of hope, and DeSantis seems to have given that to them, but they don't understand that this is just going to come back. We're really just going to be biting ourselves in the ass.
Yeah.
Well, we want to wish you all the best of luck in your primary. Just let people know where District 13 is so they know who can vote for you.
Yeah, so it is Pinellas County, Florida. It did get a little gerrymandered, so they did cut off a few things. So, for those who know Pinellas County, it's west of 34th Street all the way up to Tarpon Springs. So the beaches are in the district, Clearwater, Largo, Seminole, and then like half of St. Pete is in it because of what they did. They gave half of St. Pete to Congresswoman Kathy Castor. So that is the district that I am running in. And our primary is August 20th. So make sure you vote on August 20th or before. There's early voting and ballots drop this week, actually. And then, just a little more information, you can go to sabrinaforflorida.com, which has everything. I think it just popped up. There it is. And you can see my issues and everything that I represent in this primary. We ask everyone that's listening, if you love and hear what I have to say, I ask that you contribute, you volunteer. You can volunteer from home. We do phone banking. We do door knocking. Like, we are out here in the field talking to voters every single day about this story and how important it is that we have young, diverse leaders serving us in Congress. So thank y'all for having me here today. I really enjoyed the conversation.
There's a Miss Medicinal in the Instagram chat that seems to really like you quite a bit, and apparently went
great.
to high school with you. I don't know who it is, but yeah.
She said she went to high school with you.
Yeah.
Oh, great. Thank you. Yeah. Go Osceola. I went to, Osceola Warriors. I went to Florida State. So if any Seminoles are on, tuning in, go Knowles, all the stuff.
So you moved from Kissimmee over to Clearwater?
From Tallahassee to Clearwater, or what do you mean?
No, you said you were in Osceola County.
Oh no, our Osceola High School is in Seminole, Florida. It's in
Oh,
Pinellas
that
County.
makes perfect sense.
I know, right?
There's probably a Seminole High School in Osceola as well, just to balance it out, right?
And we do have a Seminole High School here too, and those were our rivals. So Osceola and Seminole were rival high schools. I know, it's crazy.
That's what you wanted to just basically put out just a few of your bullet points in regards to what is the strong.
Uh-oh. Did you lose Gary the way I lose him?
Yeah, no, I lost it.
You're back, Gary. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, I blame Blaze and Oakley because he really does not want to get anybody to have good internet out here. But we just want to, before you go, just a couple of bullet points in regards to what are the strong parts of your platform.
Strongest parts of my platform. I am the only candidate that was born and raised in this district, the only candidate that served in today's federal government and understands the current issues we are facing. I'm the only one who has an understanding on emergency management and natural disasters. I got my master's from Georgetown in it. And I've been working with FEMA and, HUD and all of them around preparedness and response. I think when it comes to issues, of course, number one is restoring our reproductive rights and getting Roe v. Wade codified. Number two is addressing the climate crisis, because I really believe that our elected officials are not addressing it. Anna Paulina Luna actually wants to dismantle the EPA, cut funding, and it's really scary because not just my district, like any Floridian tuning in, like Florida's at risk, y'all, when it comes to the climate crisis. So that's like always number three for me. And then the third thing that I always say on my platform is we have to address the affordability crisis that we're going through. Younger generations are suffering from paying rent or having to buy a home. Older generations aren't able to pay for their healthcare bills and their mortgage because Social Security doesn't cover it. Families are suffering as well with their healthcare bills or putting, food on the table. And so for me, I really want to be that person that is in Congress that is always advocating for the issues that are hurting us right now, but also making sure that we are really looking forward to and addressing the climate crisis, because it's not in the future. It's happening right now. And I think we all see that and live it every day.
Now, if Kathy Castor took a portion of your district, my guess is it was gerrymandered to give the Republicans a strong majority in your district. Is that correct?
Yeah, but I wouldn't call it a strong majority. It gave them a majority, but what's very unique about this district is we still have a third of the registered voters are independents or NPAs. So they tend to actually, no matter what, will sway this election come November. So this is the most targeted seat, most flippable seat in the state of Florida. This is a seat that people are paying attention to in DC, because they know that Representative Ana Paulina Luna is weak when it comes to her extremism and her inefficiencies, but also the fact that we have, independents and NPAs that make a third of the block. There's just as much registered as Democrats. So if you get those two blocks to vote for the Democrat, you defeat the Republicans.
Okay, well, we wish you all the best luck in the primaries. We hope to see you again after the primaries as the presumptive candidate.
Yes.
If you're going to the DNC, enjoy the DNC. It's gonna be wild.
I know. Well, I can't go because it's right before our primaries. It's August 17th and our primary is August 20th. So as you can imagine, I'll be like on the ground, knocking doors, every last person possible before that primary. But I will be tuning in because I think it's going to be a crazy convention.
Hopefully, Nikki wasn't involved in that, in the timing on that, because it's kind of bouge.
I know. It's all good. It's all good. Everyone's like, whatever, Florida. I'm like, okay, thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Okay, and we greatly appreciate you having you on. Somebody who's got the benefit of knowing what happens in Medellin as well as in Morocco, and of course the States is concerned. And hopefully we will not allow the situation to happen where they're going to be taking away native birthright of people who were born to immigrants.
Mhm.
Because that's one of the things that's in that 2025 that makes absolutely no sense, because it would actually impact you even though you're born here in this country.
Correct. It would. And it's people need to read Project 2025. I know it's been like blowing up, but it is absolutely scary and disheartening to see what they want to do to this country. I mean, we are a country built on immigrants. We have to remember that's this country at its core. That's the beauty of it. And for them to come and attack it is it's terrible.
You hear that, Poppy?
I know Carlos and I, we're getting the boot. It's okay. We'll go to Morocco.
No, you'll be surprised. I mean, my father, he doesn't consider himself to be an immigrant. He can see, he's Cuban. He considers it exile, I guess. So he's right there. He's like, I got into this country legally. You should get into this country legally too. And it just becomes this weird thing. I don't know. I don't really want to comment on it too much, but it's weird how my conservative parents how far they've gone,
Yeah. And to that point though, is my parents came here legally too, but they also believe that, I mean, especially my mom with her lived experiences, like they believe that there are so many people who come to this country because they need that asylum, because they have been put at threat or risk. And what we really need to look at is that our system is just not built well, right? Like it is very ineffective. It takes about 6 to even 15 years to come here the right way. And when your life is at threat, you're going to try and wait 6 years to come to a country that can help you have a better life. I mean, for me, we need to get to the root of the cause, which is working with the Department of Homeland Security and ICE and ensuring we create a better system that reduces that time frame to be only months, right? It should be a 3 to 6 month process, ensuring that people who their lives are at risk are able to come. And we have the asylum seeker, program and everything, but how do we make that as effective and efficient so that people do come here the legal way and we're able to ensure that they come here safely, but we also aren't putting their lives at risk back in their country, right? And so as the daughter of immigrants, right, that's something I'm always thinking about, especially while I'm running for a federal seat. And we all know that the federal government has a big say on that process.
And I feel, just to comment about it, I feel very proud to live in a country where, people risk their lives to come here for their freedom. And,
right.
My family risks their lives, to come here. Yeah, my dad got a visa or whatever, but he went through some hard times to eventually get here. My mom was part of the Peter Pan program. So, she
and boat lift.
she came here at 14 and was adopted by a family in Kentucky. There's some hardships that were ensued for my family to come here and live in freedom. And I think everybody that wants to come here and live in freedom, maybe they're not doing it the right way, but they they should be able to take part in that freedom. Then I appreciate you for standing up for them.
Of course.
Yeah, don't forget to fill out your survey we sent you. We sent one to every one of the candidates to fill out so we know exactly where you guys stand. And of course, there's a box you can check off if you want to be a guest on the rotation and get a chance to get this kind of visibility that Sabrina got from us. And you've been an absolutely lovely guest. We greatly appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for being on the show, Sabrina.
Of course. Thanks for having me. It was really great speaking with you all today.
I know Carlos has got to get over to Sarasota, but I did want to just put in a pitch, of course, because of the fact that we are a member-driven organization, and so therefore, in order to help us fight for legalization that is good for everybody, you need to go to suncoastnormal.org/membership and donate $25. Tom Keene, who is currently a representative in the state government who flipped a Republican seat, is a member of this organization. And we helped him get in office. So you hear it, guys. We're the guys who give out the bumps. And
if you want to be like Tom Keene, you can just this QR code that I'm pointing at right there. You can just scan that, and it'll take you right to the membership page. Gary, he's frozen.
Whether or not Amendment 3 passed. There you go.
I miss having him in the studio, man.
Yeah, I'll be in the studio as soon as I can. But the fact is, we got a lot of work to do, whether or not Amendment 3 passes or not. If it passes, we've got to make certain that the legislature guides it in the right direction and doesn't take away liberties or create a situation where there will be more arrests because people will not realize the fact that there's still no public use. So even if the flower is legal, if you're smoking in public, you will get arrested. Bottom line. So freedom isn't always free. And we have to let people understand that. If it fails, we still got work to do on the medical program. We still got to make certain that you have freedom to not get arrested. If you're, have it in your home and you're using it and your kids are there, have your kids taken away. We also do have a home grow bill, believe it or not, for the legislature. It's not going to cost millions of dollars to put on a petition, and it will give you guys the right for home grow. So we can discuss that another time. You can come to our meetings. We'll discuss it. But this bill will be back again this next session. And so we look forward for all of you guys to be here next week on the rotation. In the meantime, have a safe week. Have a solid week. Keep your head down. And peace out.